Well, good day to you. It is April the 8th, and I hope wherever you are having a fantastic day. My name is Gary Willing. I want to welcome everyone to Search for Signs, and as always, I want to point out if you're new, remind you again if you've heard these videos before, that if you want to know more about who and what Maitreya is, you want to see if there's any truth to this after listening to a video or two on this channel, the best thing to do is to branch out a little bit, just a little, and check out some of those websites that I provided links for in the description portion of these videos. You'll learn more about this information in some way by reading what's on those sites. And if you go to some of the sites, I think at the end of it, you'll at least see if there's any truth to it. So that's why I think it's important for everyone to take that on for themselves and do it. It's free. It only costs you just a little bit of time to do it. So hopefully you'll do it at some point. Now, if you want to join the discussion here, if and only if you want to do it, post comments, post your questions in the comments section. Email me at searchforsigns@mail.com, and you can even join the discussion on Facebook, however you want to do that too, if you're a Facebooker. But I want to thank Mark Hill, Jaime, Cynthia Jaworski, and Ricardo Wesley for your comments since the last time I put a video up. Thank you so much for doing that, guys. I really do appreciate it. All right, now, let's see if I can tackle a comment here coming from Jaime. Now, I need to set this up real quick. You might not have heard videos that I've addressed his comments on or read his comments, and that's fine. I'm just going to say this. He doesn't agree with what I have to say. I totally respect that. I know he doesn't respect what I have to say, but that's fine. Now, I want to read what he has to say first, and then I'm going to address it, not coming from trying to defend a position or even to defend Benjamin Creme, because he kind of goes after Benjamin Creme in his comment. But hopefully we can learn from this, because, you know, even people who do not agree with this information or perhaps combative in their comments, oftentimes I address what they have to say, not as a retort to what they're saying, but maybe that there might be somebody out there that might gain a different perspective on this information from that. Or they might even share what this person is thinking. And by me talking about it, maybe that can help dispel some of their concerns perhaps, or something like that. So this person, from time to time, I've addressed his comments. Most of the time, I just leave his comments up and that's it. And I have actually, unfortunately, had to take at least one of his comments down. I don't know if I've taken more of his comments down or that, but I think it's just one, because I found it to be disrespectful. And that was the last comment he put up that I remember doing that. But anyway, what did he have to say? He said, "Come on, Gary, we all know that people shouldn't read Benjamin Creme. They should watch videos of him so they can see for themselves how far detached from reality Benjamin Creme was. Grade A quack. He was simply repeating the same theosophical crap as Alice Bailey and HPB, and even claimed to have an entity whom he channeled the message of. Wasn't it the lefty Bill Maher who told Benjamin Creme he was a quack to his face?" All right, so what I wanted to talk about is, first part, recommending that people shouldn't read Benjamin Creme. Although you spelled his name incorrectly. This isn't what I wanted to say, but I'll just say this anyway. There's only one M in his name, okay? So you can spell it however you want to spell it. I'm just trying to help you out. But you have improved from Beanie Cream or whatever you call it the last few times. But yes, I always recommend that people watch his videos and also read too. You can go to the Share International site and watch videos that the Share International group put up of his lectures, of his press conferences, perhaps, or some of the things that he's done and those kind of things. And you can get a different perspective of who and what Benjamin Creme is for yourself by doing that. You might, at the end of watching those videos, feel the exact same way as this person does, that he is a grade A quack. And I am totally cool with that. At least you have taken the time to investigate it for yourself and to watch a video or two or whatever. Now, I know this person's not going to believe this, but this is for other people. You might not believe me when I tell you this, but because of the time that I spent with Benjamin Creme, I can assure you he's not a grade A quack. He wasn't a grifter. He did not make a dime off of this work. He was a professional artist. He made his money off his paintings, and his wife was a teacher. That was it. And I had a chance to get to know him. I didn't know him as well as a lot of people that I know him. You know, I know him okay, not super duper well, but okay. I saw him about once a year, talked to him every once in a while, had a chance to engage with him on a one-to-one, he had one-on-one time from time to time where I could talk to him and stuff like that. And I can assure you that he believed 100% in what he was saying. You might not agree with what he had to say, but I can assure you that he believed in it 100%, and he wasn't doing it to make money off of people or to fool people or whatever, like so many people accuse him of. And, you know, my perspective of Benjamin Creme is I respect him immensely. Even though he's passed away, I still respect him immensely, and I love him dearly, and I miss him. And I found him to be one of the biggest influences in my life, of course. Now, I'm not devoted to the man, and we're going to talk about this as it comes to the Bill Maher comment. But there were things that he has said to me before that I chewed on for years, and I've talked about this in other videos, where he said things to me at the time that really pissed me off. And for years, I resented him saying those things to me. And it took his passing and me becoming older and wiser to look back at it and realize that what he said, how he said it, and when he said it was the act, even though I didn't like what he had to say, was the perfect thing for him to say to me. Because it changed the way that I viewed myself. And it helped me in a way that I wouldn't have imagined at the time that he said it. But yeah, he said some things to me that really pissed me off. But overall, I found him to be a delightful, intelligent, funny individual that was very down to earth. And I never felt like I had to look up to him. Even though I did, I never felt like I had to look up to him for anything. Like he was who he was and I was down here. I never felt like that. But I looked up to him for his knowledge and for his experience and for his wisdom, really. And he claimed, yes, he did claim to have connections with these masters. Now, when it comes to channeling, he never claimed to channel a master. His information came telepathically. It was a mind-to-mind contact, as he put it, where he could actually hear his master's voice in his head. He didn't have to go into a trance state. So myself, like so many others, would be talking to Ben, whether it was in a conference or in a lecture or just one-on-one, and he could ask his master a question. His master was on the other side of the planet, and boop, boop, and he could his master would give the answer to him. And the articles that I always encourage everybody to read, coming from Benjamin Creme's master, were written by his master telepathically. And so Benjamin Creme said that he could hear his master's words in his head louder than his own thoughts, is the way he heard it. But I wanted to kind of segue into a little bit of the history of the masters and how they've been working with disciples to get their work out to humanity, to help humanity grow and progress to the point that we're at today, based off your comment, Jaime. So I really do appreciate it, actually. The reason why people like Jaime and others, he's not alone in disparaging Ben, HPB, Helena Blavatsky, or Alice Bailey, thinking their work is crap or garbage. For one thing, they don't take the time to really scratch the surface of it. They just kind of look at it on a superficial level. But it smacks in the face of generations of conditioning and dogma and ideology. And when people take a defensive stance against something like this, it's because they are totally ingrained in that view of life, very conditioned, very, into their ideology. And they take offense to when somebody comes with some new information. So for eons upon eons upon eons, the vast majority of humanity, their connection with the divine was through the church or, a religious organization of some kind. And there are also others, of course, that, had perhaps more of an emotional connection or, that kind of sense with the divine. But in both instances, both groups of people had no idea that they were not alone, that God's representatives, that these masters of wisdoms, from our point of view, perfected men of wisdom, of joy, of creativity, were living still on the same planet, just not, dealing with us directly, one-on-one, but working indirectly with us through the disciples in the world. So we perhaps got information from them, but it was from a secondary source. And they were really never talked about until now, until Helena Blavatsky was asked by one of these masters to start to get this information out there. Because these masters, when they left the public eye and retreated to these very, very remote areas that they've been living in, knew at some point they would have to come back into the everyday world at some point. And so they worked with disciples, who perhaps didn't even know that they were being worked with by anybody, to get information out, to get a set of ideas out, or whatever, to progress humanity to the point where these masters could come back. It was a very, very long, drawn out process that has taken ages, literally ages. And when I say ages, I mean not months, not years, not centuries, not even millennia, but ages. Like when we talk about a cosmic age of 3,500 years, not only just 3,500 years, but like it's like been over 100,000 years since these masters were out, known for who they were. They'd never left. They've always been guiding and protecting humanity from behind the scenes, but that's the way it was. Now, when somebody like Benjamin Creme comes out and talks about this information, it smacks in the face of all this conditioning, all this dogma, and people get very, very turned up, offended, and violent, oftentimes, with anything new, let alone something as incredible and as astounding and provocative as we're not even at the top of the heap, the spiritual heap. There's actually a kingdom above humanity called the Masters of Wisdom, or the spiritual hierarchy, or the kingdom of souls, or the kingdom of heaven, that everything that we've been thinking about in terms of God, in terms of ourselves in the universe, or whatever, was false. It was based on a truth, but we interpret it incorrectly, and we've created these ideologies that divide Christians from Muslims, Muslims from Jews, Jews from atheists, and atheists from Hindus and Buddhists. I mean, we have all these divisions in the world, but in reality, we are all one. There is no difference between the teachings. It's the way we view these teachings is the problem. That's the problem. Now, to get to the channeling part of your comment, these masters don't channel information as claimed by so many people, not only Jaime, but even people who themselves claim to be channeling information from these masters. The only instance that a master channeled any information to a disciple that I know of was the Master Jesus gave the information for the Course of Miracles to a disincarnated entity on the astral planes who channeled it to the person who wrote the Course in Miracles. And that's the only time. Other than that, these masters work with and get their information out and their teachings out, or guide humanity in this way. One is they do a mental impression on a disciple who's pretty advanced. There might not be as advanced as a Leonardo da Vinci or a Jesus or a Abraham Lincoln, but they're getting there. And they're able to impress upon their mind, it's called mental impression, an idea or a concept or a theory or whatever, that inspires that person to move or do something with it. And if that person is the majority of their nature is altruistic, well, then there'll probably be a lot of good that will come out of what they did. But most of us aren't purely altruistic. We have some selfishness in us. And so that selfishness sometimes kicks in and overpowers the altruistic side of the person, and the original intention of the impression of the master is really thwarted by the person's own selfish nature, and then nothing really comes of it, or it just kind of dies on the vine or whatever. And a good example would be, let's say they impress upon a person the aspiration to become a politician, because they might have the ability to be really good at that and really look out for their people. Let's just say, this is just an example. And that person goes into politics. They don't know why. They're just inspired to do it, but they were inspired under the inspiration of one of these masters as a mental impression. And then they get into politics, and then they get a little bit of power, and then they get a little bit of more power, and then they start feeling all full of themselves. And next thing you know, now they're totally corrupt. You know what I'm saying? And the original inspiration behind why they even wanted to get into politics is totally lost at that point. And I talk about it all the time as something that Paul said, to the Corinthians. Even Satan can disguise himself as an angel of light. Watch your intentions with like a hawk, because we are trained from the cradle to think about ourselves and only think about ourselves. And if you're lucky, you were talked about just in passing in the peripheral to think about other people. And you think about it from time to time. But for the most part, we're all pretty selfish. And if you're not careful, that can happen in whatever area you're in. But anyway, so that can happen. So there's a lot of room for error when it comes to mental impression. There's a lot of room for somebody maybe not doing anything with it, or there's a lot of room for it going bad on the person because of them. So that's the reason why the information from these masters, the plan from these masters has been so slow. It's not them, it's us. And if they did not have perfect patience and perfect love, none of those guys would have hair because they'd be pulling their hair out. You know what I'm saying? Because we're pretty thick as a humanity. But anyway, so that's the other way that's one way that they communicate with humanity or with these disciples. The other one is they put an idea up in the mind belt. And what they do is a master might have an idea for an invention or a scientific or medical discovery. They put the actual blueprints of the plan into the mind belt, and those people who are sensitive enough can pick up on it, and voila, they've created I discovered I discovered this, or I invented that. And then they kind of take it and claim it for themselves, but the idea came from one of these masters. And there's more than one occasion of this. I mean, there's countless occasions of this, but the most well-known occasion of these masters putting these thoughts into the mind belt and two or more people picking up on the same idea is the phone. If you know historically about the phone, Alexander Graham Bell was credited with inventing the phone, but did he really invent the phone, or did he pick up on something and design it that way? Because hours after he put in the patent, somebody who he never met in another part of the world came up with nearly the exact same invention and tried to put the patent in, but just hours after Alexander Graham Bell. It's incredible. But they both picked up on the same idea. See, the problem is we're living in a world where everyone's competing against one another. We don't cooperate at all. Imagine if we were living in a world where that happened, but yet instead of competing against one another for the patent, for all the money, they decided to join forces and work together. They might have come up with an even better invention than what they came up with. They were obviously two very brilliant individuals, right, to come up with an invention like the phone and to respond to that inspiration from whatever master invented it. But imagine what would have happened if that would have been the case. And that's what's going to be like in the future. These masters will put an idea out into the mind belt in the same way, and instead of competing against one another, we'll start to cooperate with one another. We'll use the internet to share ideas in that way. It'll be extraordinary. But anyway, I digress. But that's the other way that they communicate. And then they also communicate with a mind-to-mind contact, like they did with like Maitreya did with Jesus, got his teachings out through Jesus in that way, although the Christians would totally disagree with that. Same thing with Gautama Buddha. The actual Buddha overshadowed him in that exact same way. Funny thing is Jesus overshadowed Muhammad, even though Christians don't see Islam and the Quran as being anywhere remotely related. They are actually the same teachings, just coming from one from Maitreya through Jesus, the other one is Jesus through Muhammad. And then even other people who perhaps didn't tell people that they were doing this and this was happening were working with these masters in the exact same way, but people like Mozart, Beethoven, Bach, William Shakespeare, Abraham Lincoln, Leonardo da Vinci, of course, a lot of the Renaissance painters worked with these masters in the exact same way that Benjamin Creme claimed to work with his master as a mind-to-mind contact, but in whatever field of endeavor they were working in. And other ways, and this is perhaps maybe not a revolutionary way of them communicate with humanity, but it's the start of them really building the rapport with average humanity, is when they create a familiar and meet with a person for a time. And a familiar is a thought form of the master, where it is real, it's physical, you can touch it, it feels just as physical as you or I, but it's a thought form of one of these masters. It can look like a young boy, it can look like an old man, woman, fat, thin, this color skin, that color skin, this color hair, that hair, no hair, it doesn't matter. And they can do it all over the world simultaneously to different people. And I've experienced this with Maitreya, where I've had these Maitreya experiences, where I've talked about meeting Maitreya, but it was a familiar of Maitreya. Maitreya was still in London. He created a thought form of a familiar. I know exactly what they look like, but yet, and they look different every time, but it was Maitreya. It was his energy. It was his words coming through that thought form. And then once that encounter ended, he dematerialized that person. That's why when people turn around, a lot of times, like, where'd they go? There was nowhere for them to go. They're out in the middle of nowhere. This person comes up, starts talking, came out of nowhere, starts talking to him, goes behind him, turns around, and they're gone because the master dematerialized that person. And so that's the other way that they're doing. But I think they're doing more with average people such as myself because it's their way of starting to build this relationship with humanity more and more, closer and closer, because it's not going to stop. It's going to get deeper and broader to where eventually, at some point, way into the future, we will all be the masters of wisdom as a humanity. And not just the masters of wisdom are a small group. Humanity will be the masters of wisdom. That's the eventual plan of all this. But anyway, that's how they communicate with humanity. So hopefully that helps understand, clear up some of that confusion with it. But Ben never claimed of channeling or anything like that. Now, in terms of Bill Maher, this is what I wanted to talk about. I love and respected Ben, very much so, but I was not devoted to him. And I've never seen this information as an ideology, apparently, because even when somebody like Bill Maher disrespects, I thought he was very disrespectful to Ben, very sarcastic, but I respect Bill Maher for his political views. So I watch Bill Maher all the time, and I never once think about, well, I do, I take that back, that's not true. I do think about him from time to time doing what he did to Ben, but it doesn't cloud my view of what he's saying. I think he's got a very clear view on what's going on in American politics. Very critical of the left just as much as he is with the right. Sometimes even more so. He's probably more critical, I think, of the left than the right. Maybe. He gives them both a fair shake of criticism. But I do think his criticism is spot on, and I respect his view on it. And yet, he does not agree with anything that they're talking about. Made fun of Ben in that way. I know a lot of people were very hurt by what he did. But even, you got to understand who he is. He's an atheist. He doesn't believe in any of this. He was doing a movie, which wasn't a very popular movie. Probably went right to video, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, if it did, it showed at very limited screens around the country. It didn't take off or anything like that. But he was doing it to, in his mind, expose the lies of some of the church people, some of the televangelists, and some of these other cult leaders, and he asked Ben, or somebody asked Ben, to be interviewed by him, and he made fun of him. And I'm sure Ben knew going into it that he would, but he, you got to understand, Ben didn't care what people thought of him. He only cared about getting this information out because it was very important. So even if it made him, in this case, Bill Maher didn't paint him in a flattering light, it didn't matter to Ben. So, oh well. But yet I can love Ben, respect Ben, know what he's saying is true, know who he is, and still watch Bill Maher, and I'm fine with it. And that's what I always try to tell people about this information. If you really want to know if you are totally absorbed in your ideology, it's if you get offended if somebody else disagrees with it. Politically, economically, religiously, or spiritually, if that's the case. And like I said, I can watch Bill Maher and have no problem with it, no issue. So I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm a one known quantity, but I doubt it. But it's because I don't see this as an ideology. So therefore, there's no walls around it for me. You can agree with it. You don't have to agree with it. I always question why somebody would, like yourself, Jaime, would continue to come back, even though you don't agree with this, other than maybe possibly there's the possible hope, you might not see it like this, that you're working through this information in your own way, but other than that, it's like, okay. So you think Ben's a quack. Okay. I don't care. I know that in the very, very near future, people such as Bill Maher, who perhaps, like I said, made fun of Ben, might think differently. Because really, if you look at what Bill Maher talks about in terms of politics, it's not far off from what Ben was talking about. They're very much aligned in their view of political leaders and their assessment of politics in that way. I think Bill Maher has a very clear intellect on that and is a tad bit more open-minded than most political pundits. A tad bit more honest, I think, and really stands on his own 2 feet when it comes to those kind of things and doesn't sway by the political winds at all. And I respect him very much for that. Do I agree with what he said and what he did with Ben? No, but okay. You know what I'm saying? Ben put himself in that position because he knew it was important to get this information out there, and it is what it is. Will he, after seeing Maitreya, change his mind? I don't know. That's between Bill Maher and Bill Maher alone. You know, it's not between Gary and Bill Maher, so whatever. But anyway, listen, I really appreciate your comment, Jaime, and everybody else's comments. I love you guys. You guys take care. Enjoy the Easter weekend, and we'll talk to you real soon. Take care and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.